Hey guys, Wayne here. I want to talk a little bit about what's been going on with my youngest daughter and give you guys an update with that because it was an interesting day yesterday and figured it would be, well, it'd be definitely good to talk about. Okay, so you guys know what's been going on. I've given you some heads up on it. So yesterday was really bizarre because looking at the online portal for the school with what's going on with my daughter, her grades were up. When I picked her up after school, or shortly after, or a little bit after school, I had an appointment with the other two, so grabbed all of them to head off to the appointment. Prior to that, when I was looking at the grades, like I said, the grades were up. The teacher said she was gonna send some paperwork for an assessment home for me to sign and look at, and my daughter didn't have that, so I was a little perplexed by what was going on. You know, especially after over the weekend with the information basically being pretty dire. I mean, it was that she was failing math and it looked like there was no way to get around failing math or getting an F in math. And she was failing some other classes and stuff like that. So I don't know, still trying to wrap my head around that, but this is where I was at yesterday. When we finally got home, and I waited to really have the conversation with her until we got home just because I didn't want to do it when we were out in town and stuff like that. So I did text the teacher and ask for some clarification because I'm like, hey, what's going on? I really don't know what my next move is because I don't really know what the current status is. And when she responded back, she said that she got overcome by events at school with some other issues not related to my daughter, which was nice. So the paperwork would come home today, and that the attitude has been better since she spoke to my daughter's mom on Monday. A little frustrating because, you know, the underlying intent is that, well, I talked to her on Monday and everything's fine, right? So that was a little frustrating, but the news was positive. So that coupled with, excuse me, the grades being better, I had asked if my daughter had apologized to the teachers for her inappropriate and not unprofessional, but what's the right word I'm looking for? Inappropriate behavior and disrespectful behavior. So when we got home, sat down with my daughter and said, look, told you before that if you continue to be disrespectful to your teachers, I would take your iPod Touch away so she can watch movies and stuff like that. And music is really important for her, which I kind of get because I do the same thing for me with homework and not homework, but when I was in school, for whatever reason, the way I operate, music was important so that I could listen to it while I was doing it. And I do the same thing now. When I'm working on something big, I always listen to music to help me relax. It's kind of bizarre. So she's the same way, so I get it, right? So I get that that's important. Excuse me. So anyways, so I talked to her and I said, look, this is the deal. You've been disrespectful. I told you before that this is what I was going to do. I said, however, your teacher says you have been doing better. You did do really great on this test. You actually got 109% on this test, which is great for a history test. And I said, look, this is what I'll do with you. I'm going to take your phone. You apologize to both those teachers tomorrow. Keep your attitude good, and I'll give it back to you, right? Because I wanted to have some type of consequences that was tied with what I said before, as opposed to negotiating out of it. So obviously she was a little upset. She wanted to talk to her mom to tell her about how she did on her test. I'm like, absolutely, you can do that. You know, go text your mom, do it really quick, get it over with, and then I'm going to take your device. So that's what happened. So obviously, not obviously, but she was really upset with that, and you know, but she didn't negotiate too bad. Actually, she did really well. So did that, got the device, put it away. Let her do some other homework. I did have another little device that would play music that didn't have it was like an old iPod Shuffle. So I threw a playlist on there so she could listen to the music while she was doing her homework. Like I said, I get it. Maybe you guys don't recognize, or not recognize it, but maybe that's not a thing for you. That's a huge thing for me, so I get it. So I made I guess made an accommodation, but I told her I would take her iPod Touch away, which I did. So The interesting part with it though is after that she was completely fine. She did the rest of her homework she needed to do. She showed it to me because I told her she had to show it to me. She was in a good attitude, wanted to, have, some time talking with me and showing me her pictures and some stuff that she's been drawing when she was done. Towards the end of the day, whenever it was time to take a shower, she did that without complaint. And went to bed on time and wanted to get tucked in and all that stuff. And typically if she's really upset, then she fights more. And the real big indicator is she doesn't want anything to do with me. She doesn't really want to, if I want to give her a hug, she won't give me a hug or doesn't want to do that. And she doesn't want me to tuck her in. But she actually was like, hey, you need to tuck me in, stuff like that. So it was interesting on how this whole thing played out. Now, one of the things I do want to talk about, the first thing is the way this has changed from really catastrophic to not as bad in the matter of 3 days is a little odd. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on with that. And I still need some more information from the teacher to really determine what the right course of action is on that. Hopefully I'll have some more information later when I talk to my daughter and I get the information from the teacher. Plus I have emails and texts out to the teacher to get some clarification on what happened today and what's going on. Okay, so one of the things I want to talk about, or what I really want to address, I think is really important, is although this is going relatively well right now, this is not what I was dealing with 3 years ago, or even a couple of years ago, okay? It's taken a lot of work and perseverance to get to this point. And because of the changes that I made earlier on, I said before that I made a lot of mistakes with my oldest, excuse me. But I've adapted how I interact with my kids and what I'm trying to do. And I've talked about this in other videos where I'm doing a balancing act of holding them accountable, but not having an impact my ability to have a relationship with them. And I think that has been the critical step that has really helped this calm down, right? So I can still have boundaries and I can still have consequences, but it doesn't affect everything, right? It's like, okay, so you messed up here, we're gonna deal with this here, there's a consequence here, but that doesn't mean I don't still love you, that doesn't mean I don't still care for you, that doesn't mean that, you're not going to get my attention or that I'm going to glare at you or something like that with that. So my point is that what I just described last night was not typical 3 years ago. It would have been a knockdown drag out. She would have basically had an attitude the entire evening. I would have, what she would have said to me is that, you're mean, why can't you be more like mommy? I like doing homework with mommy because she's better, all that other stuff. It's like I fell into that trap of being the disciplinarian, which I still am that, but I took it too far. I took it to what you would normally think about how you would do it as the disciplinarian when you're together. And unfortunately, you have to be both. You have to be the good cop and you have to be the bad cop. You can't just be one or the other because it doesn't work. You have to balance it. You have to thread the needle, so to speak, to be able to deal with it. Like I said before, I didn't do a very good job in the beginning. I made a lot of mistakes, and I think I know that it complicated my situation, my relationship with my kids, and it slowed down the progress, okay? So when I talk to you guys about balancing that and dealing with it, you have to do these things in a way to where it's not like anger-based. It's not, like, okay, you messed up and I hate you now because, not that we would ever say that, but that our kids don't get that impression or that feeling that because they've failed, that they're a failure, that we don't care about them anymore and all those different things. And it's really tough, right? Because when we're dealing with this, we're dealing with the anger we're having primarily directed at our ex because we know that this situation is the complexity is increased tremendously because of what the ex is doing, because of how they're approaching it, because of how they're not basically being a parent. They're being a friend, but they're not being a parent, and then it falls on us. as soon as you can kind of grapple with that and like make your peace with it and realize, okay, you have to set those boundaries and you have to set consequences, but you can't let it be absolute, right? Like for instance, a few years ago, I would fall into the category that you will do your homework and you will do nothing else at all until you finish your homework, which resulted in no homework getting done, sitting, staring at papers for hours, and nothing happened. What I should have done and what I do now it's like breaks. It's like, okay, you're gonna work on this for 30 minutes and you're gonna take a 10-minute break. You're not gonna get to play with the stuff that that's been taken away, but you get a 10-minute break to do something different, like draw or read a book or do something, right? And that's the thing, you have to break it up. And in those times, you also have to work on and keep your relationship with your child moving in the right direction so that you reinforce that you love them, that you care about them, that you don't like what's happened and you're only the consequences because of what they've done. It's not you, it's they've caused a situation because of the circumstances to deal with a repercussion. And it's tough. And I'll tell you, in the beginning stages of it, they will negotiate on all of it. They will negotiate on, well, you're doing this to me, you can decide, you're holding on to it, you could give it back to me, and because I did this, you should give it back to me. And it's like, no, you did this, that's great that you did this, that's awesome, but the consequence was on this, and that's what we have to deal with. And it's just a matter of, getting your game face on, taking a deep breath, not allowing your anger and frustration to get the better of you, because you're gonna want, it's gonna try to, and just focus on the outcome you're trying to get. Okay, so on that, a little surprised because I wasn't sure how yesterday was gonna go. I really thought it was gonna be a lot worse. I thought even when I took her phone away, or not her phone, I keep calling it a phone, but her iPod Touch away, that it was going to be a lot more drama involved, especially with the circumstances. But it actually worked out the way it typically works out. Consequence, she gets a little upset, maybe cries a little bit, and then boom, gets back on track and does exactly what she needs to do. So I'm happy about that. Still got to figure out what's going on with the school and what the actual ramifications are for where we're at right now. I'm hopeful that maybe things are turning around. You guys know as well as I do that although her mom did focus on this for the 2 days, or from Monday night to Tuesday night, you guys know as well as I do the likelihood that it will be consistent and she will do the exact same thing on next week, on next Monday and next Tuesday, is really highly unlikely. I may try to ask my middle daughter to, double check or get involved. I think I'd mentioned before about offering to, basically bribe her with some iTunes gift card or something to help. All right, that's kind of where we're at. The main message on this is, if you guys are dealing with this and you're having a hard time, and I know we have a few people who are really dealing with this, you got to get that relationship with your child. You have to get that working, right? They have to know that you're an ally and that you care about them, and you're not just feeding in the negative feelings that they have about themselves, right? You have to have a lot of positive reinforcement, which is tough when there's not a lot of positive, and try to build on that. And once you can do that, then these things start to fall together. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of hope. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of hope on what you're dealing with. And hopefully you can see, if you're dealing with the trauma of this right now, that, coming from someone else who was there a couple of years ago, that it can actually get better. So on that, if you want to add to the discussion, please do that in the comments below. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you like the channel, please subscribe, and I will talk to you guys in the next video. So take care. Bye.